As of this evening, President Trump has officially completed 18 months in office. While it has a lot of competition, this week has been nominated as the most remarkable. Since that meeting with Russian President Putin on Monday, we have seen the president walk back comments he made on Russian election interference and then walk back those walkbacks. Here, a friendly reminder of what has transpired over the course of just 3 days.
My people came to me, Dan Coats came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative. I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also.
Is Russia still targeting the U.S., Mr. President?
Press, let's go. Make your way out.
No, you don't believe that to be the case?
Then just yesterday, we learned Putin's been invited to Washington in the fall. The White House also had to back off the president's suggestion he'd be willing to let Russia interrogate Americans, including former U.S. Ambassador Michael McFaul. And today, Politico is reporting it this way, quote, Trump's disastrous performance since his news conference alongside Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin has sent West Wing morale to its lowest level since the Charlottesville fiasco almost a year ago. Staffers are considering accelerating their departures in the wake of the president's equivocations on Russian meddling in the 2016 election. Well, here with us tonight to talk about it, Jill Colvin, White House reporter for the Associated Press, and Brian Bennett, senior White House correspondent for Time magazine. Brian, by the way, is the author of this week's cover story that included the, shall we call it, troubling cover imagery, which to the president may count as an official Time magazine cover appearance, since such things we know are important to him. Jill, welcome back. I note you started NATO, went to the UK, all the way to Helsinki. You live to tell the tale. I know that some events don't always occur to you in the moment. You're doing your job. A comment that other people can judge as weighty later doesn't land the right way. I imagine all of this did. And what was, you don't do opinion, but you do give takeaway. What was your takeaway from this week?
I mean, this trip was something that was just whiplash the entire way at every stop.
Precedents
it was just
everywhere.
Something, exactly, starting with
insulting
NATO.
Your host.
Exactly. From the very first moment that he sat down at that breakfast before the NATO festivities officially got underway, coming out at Angela Merkel like that, assaulting Germany, claiming that they were the ones who were in cahoots with Russia, to all of the drama at NATO, the threats that potentially he didn't want to participate anymore. Then you have that interview he gave to The Sun, in which he lambasted Theresa May right before he arrived. That story published just as the president had landed. I mean, then you go into the protests all across London, and then you go into Helsinki, which we all thought would be the main event. And really, I mean, I've covered this president now for almost 3 years, and there are times where, as a reporter, you know, you're surprised. There are times when we've all seen the backlash from Congress. We've seen aides, you know, really kind of burying into their holes and not wanting to comment. You know, you feel the morale, and at this point, I mean, so many people in the West Wing, it just feels like there's a sense of numbness of all these things that they've gone through again and again.
And I was told today was the last day for two important aides, Mark Short, the chief lobbyist on the Hill, and Joe Hagan in the West Wing?
I was under the impression that Joe Hagan had already departed, but you might be right.
Well, that's Lemire I'm quoting from the Associated Press, who I heard on this network. So either way,
in any case, I mean,
two big departures.
And these are people who were widely respected, not only within the West Wing, within the White House, who the president trusted, but also were trusted outside of the building. You know, Hagan was somebody who came into the White House with years of past experience in past administrations. Mark Short was the person who really helped shepherd the president's legislative agenda, you know, played a big role in the Supreme Court nominations. And those are people who are really going to be missed, especially at a time when right now it is not easy to find people to fill any of those positions. You walk into the press office now, and I mean, there are a lot of empty desks. And so the question now is, who are they going to find to fill those positions, and how much, what's their competence level going to be?
Well, it's true. It's not like working for other administrations. Brian, I'm going to quote your favorite writer, Brian Bennett of Time Magazine, and we'll talk about your writing as soon as I'm done with this quote. This from your cover story this week, and it's on the overarching topic of Russia. Trump is bruised by the idea that Russian election meddling taints his victory, those close to him say, and can't concede the fact that Russia did try to interfere in the election, regardless of whether it impacted the outcome. It's a notable quote, Brian, because here we are in the position of kind of hoping we find out from the Russians some of what was discussed in a 2-hour-plus closed-door session between two superpower leaders.
Well, it's so extraordinary that on this presidency, we always have to rely on the other country to find out what was discussed in a lot of these meetings, and that we're finding it more out from the Russians than from the White House about what President Trump and President Putin talked about. And, I mean, one of the most extraordinary moments this week was, of course, when the president decided he wanted to say that he had mixed up the word would and wouldn't in his remarks. It was extraordinary because this president is so reluctant to correct the record on so many other occasions, and it reflected such sincere and troublesome concern among his staff that they came to him and said, look, Mr. President, you need to read something that walks this back. Of course, it didn't address the central problem of his Helsinki performance, which was that he stood next to President Putin, was asked by a reporter who he believed, U.S. intelligence or President Putin, about the Russian interference, and he couldn't definitively say that he believed U.S. intelligence, and he couldn't confront President Putin. I mean, that was the moment for the president to stand up to President Putin in front of the rest of the world and tell him to that he shouldn't have meddled before and that he shouldn't meddle going into the next round of elections.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.